So we're live with the first session of the day, Tales in Dialogue. This one is entitled More Than Human and is facilitated by Paul, who is here. I'm going to pass the word to him in a moment. And we have Naomi in London, Mara in Berlin, and Marina in Sao Paulo. So it's going to be a beautiful session, and I'm looking forward to see the flow that it generates between you. If there is anything needed, I'll be here on the private chat. And with that, I pass the word on to Paul.
Thank you, Breno. I want to introduce, before we start, our wonderful talking piece, which is this, has a lot of light on it, but maybe you can see it here. There you go. So we're going to use this as a imaginary talking piece. So I'm just going to grab the talking piece. So I have it. And then I will position it in the middle. And then when you want to talk, just gently come over it and grab it and then put it back when you're done. Pleasure to be in this wonderful space. Very curious and excited to see how everything will unfold. And I just want to check in a little bit before we start to see how we're feeling. And since we're all on different time zones, I want us to drop a little bit in our body and check in to see how we're feeling, and share that in our small circles by either making a movement or a sound that kind of expresses how you're feeling. And then what we are going to do is we're going to repeat that movement and sound that you did. And maybe also start with your name, and we'll repeat the name and the movement and the sound. So we kind of imprint that name in the conversation and make ourselves more aware of each other. So I will lead by example. I will start. My name is Paul, and my sound and motion, let me check in a little bit. I would say I would use my name in the sound and motion. So it will be like, Paul. Now you'll have to repeat that name and motion. So make sure you unmute yourselves. All right.
Paul.
Wonderful. So I'll put the talking piece in the middle. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Don't forget to put the piece in the middle. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Naomi, and the sound that I'm feeling today is it's the morning, the slow morning for me. So I'm feeling just still very slow. So I'm going to go like this.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mara. I'm based in Berlin, and I'm very excited today because I just came from Miami and I don't have a jet lag. So I'm being grateful for it. So for me, my mood of this morning is to really clap and laugh. So it would be like this.
Excellent. Don't forget to put the talking piece back in the middle. There we go. So I'm gonna grab the talking piece. Thank you everyone for checking in. I would like to introduce you to our question from today, and then guide you into a little bit of more context. And then I will present the rules of our engagement, and then we can start, we can dive in. So the question is, how do you connect with the more than human world? And maybe the more than human world is a new term, or maybe you've already heard about it, but I didn't prepare any kind of speech or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe lead us in a short guided meditation and see what comes from my heart, and kind of explain the more than human and how that I relate to it, and a little bit more of context around that. So it's going to do it more for like 5 minutes. So it's going to be very short. So again, check in, drop in your body, gently close your eyes if you want. Become aware of your breath. Become aware of your body. And become aware of what oxygen is and how deeply interconnected that is with the more than human world. Become aware of this intimate exchange of our submersion in the atmosphere with all the other living manifestations of life. And if you have plants in your house, become aware of them. And your deep, intimate relationship. If not, become aware of the immediate trees that you might know and see around your house, and the birds and the sounds that you might occasionally hear of the grass and the soil and the worms and the mycelium and the mushrooms that you might see fruiting from that mycelium. And the sky, of the clouds, of the rain, of the snow, of the temperature. Is it hot? Is it cold? Of the wind. When I talk, I sculpt the breath like the wind blowing. The wind is also talking when it's touching our skin. Remember when you last had a conversation with the wind. Maybe you never had one, maybe you did. Of the sun shining, of the stars, of the rocks. Of your heart, of the sounds and the smells and the taste. How does it feel? How do you feel to a mosquito when it tastes you instead of you tasting something to eat? How do you taste for a mosquito? What does that taste like? Become aware of this intimate relationship, maybe even of the bacteria in your gut. Become aware that with every breath you're at least taking in 5 or 6 or more, who knows, of different spores of mushrooms with every breath. I can't even imagine what else is in that breath, living in deep relationship. I recently read a book by Merlin Sheldrake called Entangled Life. And he was quoting a scientist who said something very simple, very obvious, but very profound, saying in light of the new science, the word I has become obsolete. So become aware of that dissolution and of our organism that we all are. Become aware of the tensions in your body and how being aware of our deep interrelatedness with these organisms that we all are shifts and changes something in you. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. Now slowly come back to the breath, the plants, to the soil, to the stars, to the different textures, to the biodiversity that's endless, different forms that in relationship with us form us as well. Hold that in the center of your being, connect with it, and allow it to fill you from the center of your being, like a circle expanding everywhere, to fill up everything, everyone. Breathe that in, breathe it out, and I'll repeat the question for today, for the dialogue that we're going to have. How do you connect with the more than human world? Hold that in a breath. And with the out breath, slowly open your eyes. And welcome back in a space. Thank you. So, a pleasure to contemplate that together. Before we start, I want to introduce you to our engagement principles for today. It's about being brief and precise when we're talking. We have about an hour, and we speak from the heart, and listen as you would like to be listened to. Dialogues is about listening, and I'd say silence is welcome. Silence is welcome. Breaking the silence is also welcome. And let's connect with our hearts. Now, I'm going to place the talking piece in the middle, and we're going to start with a sound, our session. So, for the talking piece, the sound is Feel free to take the piece when you're ready to share.
Hi, good morning. When I think about connecting to something more than the human, I really feel like it's what really guides my everyday. it gives me great comfort to think about something that I'm just a beautifully small, insignificant part of the world, and it roots me, to know and grounds me to think that there is something so much more than just me out there in the world and so many different frequencies, so many different universes within the one that we exist in. And so for me, I start my day. I have an altar at home, and I grew up in Japan, and we have an everyday, we have the afterlife and thinking about our ancestors is a very much prevalent part of what guides us, part of the Shinto and Buddhist traditions that we're raised in, and so it's normal to have a family altar at home. So I start my everyday thinking about not just my ancestors, but to take into context my guides, my spirits, or everyone who is with me. And I think there's comfort in knowing that we're not alone, and that when things that we perceive as coincidences happen, I feel like there's this guides, and moments that have been facilitated by those who are with me, and I see it as the everyday magic in the world. I start my everyday asking to be beautifully surprised, for the day to bring me a surprise that I'm not expecting. So yeah, so thinking about something that is more than human, to me, definitely embodies, so a higher force, spirits, the spirit world, even though, you know, it's not, I think when we live in this Western scientific world where we're asked for proof all the time, and, all I need, and sharing space sometimes with people who may not move through the world with this in the same ways, but I think, just by being ourselves and connecting to what's true to us, I think in some ways that is an energy that the world needs, whether they are aware of it or not. So it gives me great comfort to start my days like that. That's my routine. Yes.
Thank you, Naomi. That was beautiful. Well, I've been always quite interested in the invisible. I think since I'm about 15, because I read that book, The Celestine Prophecy. It was one of the first books I read in that matter. And after my father introduced me to Carlos Castaneda also. So I read quite a lot of that, and I started exploring a little bit the invisible world. And here in Brazil, we have quite a big connection in different areas and different ethnicities as well, that connect very strongly to ancestral and ritual as well. So actually, I did a master's in visual anthropology in 2019, and in Berlin at the Freie University, and I was researching at the time about psilocybin as a way for healing, and I decided to go do some research on iboga, which is also a plant used in Central Africa ritualistically originally, and I went there for 3 months. Well, it's one of the ways that I find that I connect with the invisible. For me, I also have this very strong connection to nature, of course, but I believe that some plants can help into opening up space in yourself for you to connect to nature in this more intrinsic way. So yeah, to be a little bit more, because otherwise I'll be telling the whole story here and talking too long. But for me, I mean, I believe that it's on a we're connected in every level, like even if we're not aware with that other dimensions that exist. And well, I use meditation a lot as well, so that I can try to like be present and bring it to my body and silence a little bit the mind. I use yoga as well as technique for reaching that place, because I think it's also kind of like a meditative movement, like it's meditation in movement. When I'm doing yoga and I'm connected with my breath and very connected to my body and focused on that present moment. And I think it's just something that it's very difficult these days. I think that we are just there's so much stimulation all the time with everything, and in the big city, which is also very difficult, I think, because I sometimes I go to nature here in Brazil, to the beach, and then it's so much easier to connect and to be like amazed by nature. And then sometimes you get into the city and it's difficult, stressful to keep that and to remember, right? And then, but even here in São Paulo, we have a lot of traffic. It's really crazy with cars, so much cars. But sometimes I just, if I'm in traffic and I just look out and I try to listen to the birds or see like the trees. We have also these amazing trees here, like in São Paulo. Sometimes you are on the car and then you see this huge trunk, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And then sometimes they crawl over and through concrete, and then yeah, we can breathe and be okay. It's all here. I mean, also to contemplate the like machines as also God. God made, not God, but it's just part of it's everything is part of it. Well, yeah. So yeah, it's something that I feel I'm very connected with on my daily basis. I'm very aware of it, of the invisible, and I try to be more and more aware of it, and remember always, because sometimes we forget, and that's not because it's such yeah, it's so beautiful. And it's just to be thankful as well, I think, and some just like thank the opportunity to be here now. And I think we are living in such interesting times, and yeah, to be here and remember and try to bring that with you, even if like you're saying, Naomi, like some people that don't really think the same way, or they just don't necessarily believe, or but I think then it's about like being who we are in their presence, and um, somehow we can bring that and bring more people into these, which they already are, but sometimes not so consciously aware of it. the wholeness and of everything. Yes. Thank you for listening.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and also thoughts on this question. I was really touched by this question because obviously I'm coming from another background, and I have a very strong German side, which is practical and more in the scientific way educated. And then I have this crazy spiritual side from my ancestors, which are based in Sri Lanka and east coast of India. And this is always a very strong polarity point in my life. Because it's like, is it like this or should it be like that? I had like years, even with plant medicine, and I tried ayahuasca, bufo, kambo, and I was always exploring everything which came kind of across my life. I was always in this place of not looking for something more than being more in the present moment. And I tried to do it with meditation and very strong shuttles during the day. But what actually brought me to life fully was the birth of my daughter. Because compassion and also, I would say, this feeling of being part of something much bigger and being capable to give birth and how the body works out by itself. This was for me the biggest teaching of my life, because you can read about it and educate yourself, but in the end, the body's doing everything by itself. And it's also, there's a lot of karma as well, which is unfolding through these processes. And for me, to dig deeper into karma, ancestors, was during this process of giving birth, bringing my child into this world, getting much more conscious about what is happening around me, what's in relationships. This door which opened was for me my experience of seeing a bit more than my personal human experience.
There was so much in what both of you were saying that I was just nodding very heavily to. And I have not had a child yet, but that experience of when the body takes over and that kind of deep wisdom that is held within ourselves and our body, it forces you to believe, I'm sure, because you're like this magical mystery. There's so many beautiful things that we don't understand and we can't explain. And Marina, what you were saying about, your yoga practice, and I'm about 2 months into a Kundalini teacher training program, and it's been such a powerful practice for me over the last few years when especially since the world has been so uprooted, it feels like such an important responsibility to be taking care of ourselves and be rooting to something to ourselves, but something bigger than us, and what I love about Kundalini, it's that it's like there is always the energy of the infinite, thinking about the infinite, thinking about death, that is all around us. And I think part of my altar practice is like thinking about death on a daily basis, that it is not something that, how to become more comfortable with the idea of dying. And I think, especially in the context of what's been happening in the last few years, I think when we think about the non-human, how much we fear it, how much we fear the amount of death that has been all around us, and how little language and tools we have to even begin to even discuss the impact and also it just shows us so much where we are as a society and how afraid we are of it, how not ready we are to even begin to think about it. So I think, Kundalini in its own way makes it very present. And also at the same time, I love what it brings such interesting people to the mix. Like the oldest person in my training program is in their mid 70s, and how that energy of people who are yearning to transform in a real way is so electric, who are going through spiritual awakening, who are going through transformation and want to change. And it makes you see yourself in a way that, all the shadow aspects of yourself, and what it means to honor oneself, because a lot of the kriyas and practices you have to do for at least 40 days. So it's like a promise to oneself. And when everything is going crazy in the world and, new strains, every day is different, new lockdowns, I think that stability to root to oneself and honor one's practice, has been such a grounding force for me, and I love the feeling that I'm changing in a way that I will never change back. I will never become that other part of myself, older part of myself, and yeah, whether that's breathing or just the power of giving oneself and thus sharing, being able to share tools to heal oneself, and thus, and that frequency of energy that, when I was reading the concise, the kind of summary of what this discussion was about, it's something I think about all the time of, that saying, heal oneself before you heal, everything begins with us, and I do really believe that, but it's so difficult when everything feels so urgent, the planet, the world falling apart, the terrible politics that is happening all around us, everything feels so well, we have to save it now, we're running out of time, and it's such a conflicting energy, but actually no, that's also the fact that you even want to save the world or heal the world is its own ego bullshit trap. But at the same time, it's when we're people who are open, whether you're so sensitive to what's happening around us, which that's how I feel the cities are becoming very difficult for me to be in, because the energy is so cruel and harsh and low vibration at the moment. And I feel that so personally, especially living in the city where the wealth gap is disturbing, and you feel there's so much pain and so much sadness. And I feel that so much that I come back to London even after 3 days of being away and I'm like, I need to go again, I need to leave. So I think I'm also transforming in the way of figuring out how I leave, but also that difficulty of I don't want to just turn my back on not being able to see things that are difficult, and having that privilege to be I don't want to see this anymore, but also feeling so sensitive. How do we protect our energy? How do we protect ourselves? So a lot of what everyone is discussing is very much on my mind right now, and feeling that transition of where everything feels like it doesn't fit. None of my clothes, my home, my hair, everything is I'm breaking out of it, and I'm at that kind of point where I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm just kind of open to the experience. So thank you.
Wow. Yes, I feel everything that you say. I was thinking, about the death component, because I also think that in our society we're so afraid of it, right? Of looking into that. But it's something that, if we think about most of the ancient traditions in the world, they have such a different connection with death. And it's not about being afraid, right? Because somehow I see this line of like fear in one side and then love in the other, and then kind of the fear is pretty much what makes us what blocks us. It blocks us from exploring, or from, it's just the unknown, right? We're just scared of it. But I think it's also so beautiful, you know. I always try to go and find references in ancient books and in even religious books, but spiritual more to that way, because in every tradition that I've been in contact with, death is just such a part. It's just there is, it's interest, it's there, you know, just as life and death, they're coexisting. And it's also would be so much easier because I feel also, I was talking with a lady I met last week, and she's about 60, 65, and she became a model now in the during the quarantine, and she's beautiful. And we were talking about that, this uh, the thing that we have in Western society about getting old, like aging, as something bad. And also, you know, it's, and I mean, I see it also from my mom, my mom's experience, and how she deals with it. And it would be so much easier, you know, because also like there is this thing about women, and you know, and the aesthetic part of it, which is quite damaging to oneself. And I also then go back to more of like the ancient traditions, where the elder is a wisdom person, and it carries wisdom, and or they carry wisdom, and they're respected more than anything, really. I think in Japan it's also quite yeah, I remember from studies. But yeah, and then I also go back to Egypt and all. Yeah, it's just how fascinated they were with, because I feel there's so much truth in Egyptian history, as well as with an Indian. You know, I think like the Veda, the one of the most ancient books of spirituality, and I think it's so interesting to read and to know about this thing, because somehow I feel like it's difficult also to know what's true, what's not. There's so much information, there's so much, you know, but then there is something somehow that inside of me feels right, you know, when I read something, I feel okay, that this resonates with some part of me, and then it's somehow I try to navigate through it with this intuition of this inner knowledge that I might have unconscious or in this past consciousness. Yes, and then more to the end, yeah, you were talking about the city and how, and the healing of oneself, and the world. Um, so about that, I've thought a lot about it, because I think it's very, I mean, even in our most close circles, like family, because I also think like this karma situation, or I mean, not necessarily karma, can be called something else, but I believe that we are born in this particular place, and with this particular people, closer people next to us, because we do have um, we will help each other to break free from patterns and other things. It's just mirrors, right, as well. The closer the inner circles, right. So yeah, from my experience, I feel like there is no way that we can help. It's also about this, oh, the world, how can we help? How can, it's so much, but it's a little bit, it seems it's too out of our hands. But I feel that the better I am, the more rooted, or and also in my faith, whatever that is, or in my practices, and within myself, I mean, like, knowing that I'm doing the best I can right now and trying to be the best I can, it's what I can do really practically, first, because I also think that if we are not well, we can't engage with other people, and we can't engage with bigger causes. And so I do believe that it's not so much about like selflessness, but it's about love. But this love that needs to come from you to you, and from there it can expand, because then we are vibrating in a higher level, so that this way I think we can affect others much more, yeah, strongly. Sometimes I can't find the word. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that with us. A lot what you said resonated with me, and if it comes to the practical way, I'm a developer for city development, but I was for years also a life coach for artists. And I worked a lot out of my mind with techniques and strategies, and I would say pretty much cut off my heart. But it worked, so I never doubted my work. And at one point, with also plant medicine, I discovered the very vulnerable part of myself. And what I found out during this process, and also then in the development of my work, was that what we need to be like very open-hearted and also working out of our heart, or being out of our heart, is first of all to be as much as possible vulnerable. And this is something which is really scary when you are educated in a very structured way. Also, our schooling system in Europe is very based on following thoughts instead of feelings, also being very detached from your physical ability to express emotions and also to realize emotions. And what I saw in my work with people who got more into this vulnerable place, that everything which is scary or which is producing a lot of fear is unfolding, because you're opening up, you're giving into life. It's also with Kundalini the same. You reach this one point of, I can't do this anymore. I hate this practice. I don't want to. You start to cry, and then you crack open, and this vulnerability is giving you this great real power. And I love this moment. I practiced a lot of Kundalini before I gave birth, and it helped me a lot. Also to detach from my mind and ego, to think I have to do it kind of out of power instead of letting it happen. And I really have to say that during these times right now, where people try to control their lives and want kind of escape or fit in, whatever it is, from this pandemic, I fear that the biggest gift we have is that we can really learn to give in a totality, which is absolutely releasing any kind of fear and anger, and also, I would say, unrealistic love. I mean, a lot of people separated as well, because they understood that the perception they had in their lives, whatever it was, job, personal life, also about their how their life should look like was shattered into reality. And I love that, to see how people made the best out of their life during this pandemic. And I saw also this cultural difference between being afraid of dying and the culture who have a relationship to reincarnation or something like that, how well they did. Also this community part, the Italians, they had a support system, a personal support system. And we saw in different countries as well, Germany, what was missing. And I think it's a huge opportunity. I always said this pandemic was kind of taking the curtain to the side to see what is missing and what kind of work we have to do. So I feel we have so many opportunities to really explore life. And this time we got extra during the lockdown was also a big chance to try out, to split off, to try out, to call out to people. And I feel the thing which helps a lot is if you find your few people where you can be very vulnerable, because then you don't need to depress, suppress, and also get kind of off track of maybe your purpose way.
Mara, I this morning from my oracle card, I have a deck of oracle cards called Ask Your Guides, and this morning I pulled one called finding your spiritual community. So I feel like that's an apt idea because I think when you are in this space, you also need support. You don't want to. And we all know, I think, Paul, from the line that really stuck with me during your beautiful meditation was in the New Science, the word I is, I can't remember the exact words, but doesn't exist anymore. And I think that is such a perfect description for this clash that is happening in the world, right? This like individuality versus community, not realizing how entangled and intertwined that we actually are. We want to deny it so much, but the truth is, it's like the spread of COVID, how the distance is also our distance of our auras, right? That spread, that literally all around us, and we think that we're not interconnected, and even just by us breathing 2 meters away from each other, we are already connected. And it's this, and I think also, we can see that right in the countries that, like in Japan, for example, I've grown up wearing a mask when I'm not well. That is because we think of, it's communal thinking. It's immediately, I'm not well, I'm going to protect others. It's just built into our socialization. We're like in the UK or in the US, for example, or this, it's very like, but it's my personal freedom, like ideas versed around individualism, and I think that line is so like, come on, guys, we're all connected. We may live, or just seeing the clarity in like, okay, there's a new strain that started in one place and it's already all over the world because we are hyper connected, whether, as much as we don't want to acknowledge it. And I think that's so humbling, and in a way that there's people who are realizing that and people who don't want to believe that or are not hearing that yet. And that is the clash that is happening of like, and I feel that within myself a lot, in this kind of clash of, I don't want to go back to the way things were. I once realizing our hyper connectivity, when we're so socialized to think of the individual, especially in the West, of like our old goal systems, our value systems, and obviously something is shifting, people leaving cities, leaving their jobs. Like there's never been as many resignations in the last 2 months so something is happening, people are like realizing that you know, the way the working day is set up, and all of these things are a complete con, you know? So it's like, I guess, how do we connect with each other in a real way? How do we build support systems that are like, okay, because I think so many awakenings are happening individually, but how do we bring this together? I'm curious about that, you know, because at the moment it feels like it's very segmented. The strains are happening, and you know they are because you read about it, you hear about it, you hear people. You know, I sit down in a cafe and I can hear people talking about it to their friend, like, I don't want to live like this anymore. This is not me anymore. And it's like, what do we build out of that? And how do we do that? But yeah, sorry. There we go.
Oh my God, so rich. My cup is overflowing, but I will get more cups to grab everything. um, so we have 20 minutes left. We should kind of slowly try to converge, and I will also share a little bit of things that the whole conversation touched me, but some things kind of came. So I'm gonna share sort of like a buffet. So one thing that came to me is the role of the elders. And I started following, I've been working on a book that focuses on transformation while going through my own transformation. And one thing that I realized is, like, when I started the book, I thought that the end goal of transformation is to be able to get in a place where you're grounded and centered, meaning you're able to do self-regulation. You are very much, you know, the change that you want to see in the world. And I thought that that is the end goal of reaching this plateau peaceful state and being able to, you know, there's this Romanian mystic, he's saying, being able to become a church for others, but by first becoming a church for yourself. And I thought that's the end goal of transformation. But what was really interesting was that I realized that's just the beginning. And that's where this whole more than human dimension came into place. There is this eco-philosopher called David Abram, who traveled in Southeast Asia and met a lot of medicine men, medicine women, shamans, however names you want to use. And he realized that healing for them was just a side gig. And I was like, okay, their main gig was holding the bridge between the human and the more than human world. And that's for me when I dropped into the wild and into the wilderness, sitting in the jungle. I've spent the last 1.5 years in the wild. And the sad thing about our society is that while there are many older people, there are very few elder people. And there are very few adults as well, true adults. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to find a guide or to find a path to see what is true, what is not true. That's one. And then I think we also talked quite a lot about this feeling of suffering and how people are trying to avoid it through and this is the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, whose focuses on addiction, is coming in through being addicted to something. And what's really funny is, like, it's not just drugs. You can be addicted to work, or my favorite one is being addicted to success. And you're even being you're even receiving a prize and a validation for that from the social. And Bill Plotkin, who's an eco psychologist, loved the field of eco psychology. He says, that we live in a society, 90% or more of the people, and I truly agree, are stuck in early adolescence. So therefore, the psychology available to us in the mainstream psychology is the psychology of early adolescence. And I think the topics that we've kind of talked about, which is spirituality, connection with the wild, etc., goes into the psychology of adulthood, elderhood, which is very little explored, or it might sound very esoteric, because most of us are stuck in a different stage. And Naomi, I really resonated with when you said that you feel like your clothes and your hair and nothing is fitting. And I've been through so many different of these stages, and I think we all are, giving birth to a baby, for example, and many other things that were shared. I found it really interesting to look at nature and see and learn that the caterpillar just does not transform in a butterfly just like that. There's a thing called molting. So I had many times in my life where I was like, okay, I'm like transforming into a butterfly now. I'm just like, I'm grounded. I'm sad. But then life came and just like, no, you're not. Sit with your parents and see how that is, after you come from retreat. And molting is just when the caterpillar outgrows its skin. It's still a caterpillar. So there's several layers of molting until you go into the cocoon, and then you transform into this goo, which is being in a cocoon, and that also takes a while. And that process of metamorphosis shouldn't be rushed to embody. And what it is that I think we want to embody to bring it to the more than human, I think it's I really like the definition of Bill Plotkin of the soul. He doesn't ground it in spirituality, he grounds it in ecology. And he says your soul is your unique ecological niche in the ecosystem. And that's why it's hard for us to know, in the sense of alarm and emergency, what to do. It's because I'm personally still on the quest of finding that, and that is being given to you through what is called mythopoetic revelation, and that's a vision of sorts. That's not, it's not given to you in words. You're going to be this. It's sort of a vision that needs years for one to make sense of it. And to close, I think the reason why I'm mostly turning to nature is because that's the place that hosts the highest number of elders on the planet. And we just need to develop what's called cross-species communication and forget about the alphabet, which is a technology just like the smartphone. So yeah, I'm gonna put the piece back to the middle.
Thank you, Paul. I've heard about some people you were talking about when I was doing research, because in anthropology now the concept of multi-species is something that it's quite it's relatively new, but there's a lot of people doing research about it, and I think it's very, very interesting. Even I mean, about the plant communication, and there's so much. And then super interested as well about the eco psychology. I haven't read too much about it, but my supervisor my German supervisor, she's doing a lot of work in this field. So I think it's very interesting to see it like that, because I've been seeing ecology as just it's the it's the we, right? Ecology, it's about how we interact, and we can work together for something. And I think also very beautiful what you said about this church, the idea of like being a church for somebody, but then that not being the end of it. Somehow it's like building churches and then connecting them. There was a lot about what you were saying that actually resonated with me. I think you said mythopoetic is about like myth as a way to understand the world, I guess, but I've not heard. We'll look a bit further into it. But I also, what I was going to say is Ailton Krenak said something these days about suffering here. He said, because, a lot of people, I think, also were understanding the COVID situation and all this pandemic here in the West as something, that we need to, that it's through suffering, and that we need to suffer. And then he said, well, it's only, it's just about, I'm not sure exactly what he said, but it's something about being like the white people or the Occidental world, the Western world, thinking that it's through suffering that we learn, or so. And that he said that the pandemic came actually to bring death, not necessarily the suffering. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that connects, because I also then connect with the idea of Buddhist ideas of suffering somehow, that there is this but it's, I don't know, it's not, I just don't think that it's true suffering necessarily. Like we do need to face the shadow part of ourselves. Yes, I think that we need to face and actually embrace then. So it's about like learning with it, so that you can know that it exists. But then it's also, I think, bringing to this like non-duality of like, non-Cartesian, of different, separation between nature and man, because it kind of goes all back to that separation, that kind of like that put us in the wrong path. But yeah, it's not necessarily also wrong. I think that we just need to accept that we are going through it, because it's a consequence of how we are dealing with, we've been dealing with ourselves in the world. So it's somehow something that needs to happen for it to, like, for it to transcend and transform into something that is different, because it won't be the same. So somehow it's like, maybe it also was something like that, it's the ticking clock, and then we weren't really there yet. So then it's just like, okay, then nature was like, okay, then let's just do something, which I think nature is extremely intelligent. And so let's let's bring something that will force somehow people to think about it differently, and experience the world differently, so that it can bring change. Because also people are very afraid of change, and I think we are changing all the time. We're just every day when it's new, right? Like our cells are moving, and I'm talking too much. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the talking stick. Sorry, it's difficult for me to be so precise and to
Thank you, Marina. It's all right to talk too much. It's fine. We're here to listen. That's our part. It's just that we're running a little bit out of time. So I would say it would be great if we could all. Mara, you didn't get your turn to speak, so you can talk a little bit. You have a little bit more space, and then conclude with 1 or 2 sentences. And then we can all share 1 or 2 sentences about this very rich and nourishing experience together.
So last turn. I feel that I like, for my closing part is to remind that this what we're facing right now globally is a really big chance to get real, like on an individual level, but also in a global level, to also start to follow our instinct, sit still, and maybe also cry it out, but also overcome maybe this fear of physical attachment with people, because I really believe that the experience we have in this life are based on physical experiences, which is also matching, Naomi, to your course right now with Kundalini. It doesn't matter what kind of practice we have, or if we cuddle every day somebody. I think it's really important to feel on a physical level what is happening right now globally, and also acknowledge where we come from. and also to honor our ancestors. And it's a huge topic to talk about ancestors, because I have, for example, 400 people in my family. That's a lot. And astrology-wise, my life mission is to clear the karma of these families. So you can imagine how much that sucked. But with every step to clear karma, unfold karma, also experience what they maybe didn't or produced, and I have to clear in this life, is also bringing something very beautiful, and that totally made me comfortable that what is happening right now is necessary, and it also brings a lot of real life on the table. And it's not always beautiful, and it's also not always funny, but I rather decide for real life instead of something which looks nice and has no little mountains in between. So I think these giving into life means also being very present with people and things you do. And I think this is something really beautiful.
I just thank you so much, Mara. I really felt that. And just a fun fact: I've been doing this other course. I'm studying the divine feminine, and one of the modules we've been doing was on ancestors, and there was a PowerPoint presentation with these numbers that came up that was within 300 years we have over 2,000 ancestors. So, it splits in this. So just to bear that in mind is like, because so often we only, we barely know anything past our great grandparents, and not even that. But yeah, so I just wanted to end with something short. I wanted to just read out the 5 sutras of the Aquarian age, which is what we've been working with in the last Kundalini module I've been doing, because we're in the age of Aquarius, and thinking about when these were written and how they feel so apt for right now, that they have this like timelessness to it. So there's 5 of them, so I'll read them out to you. Recognize that the other person is you. Number 2, there is a way through every block. 3, when the time is on you, start, and the pressure will be off. 4, I really love this one. Understand through compassion, or you will misunderstand the times. Which that one to me right now is like, and the last one, vibrate the cosmos, and the cosmos shall clear the path. So that's, yeah, thank you so much for this discussion. Yeah, I will type them out.
I just want to thank Naomi, Mara, and Paul. It was such an enriching experience to share a little bit and talk to you from so different parts of the world. And yeah, I mean, just gonna say, I mean, we carry it, it's in our DNA also, right? It's just about also, it then connects with the Kundalini. And also like how I think it's so interesting to know that very ancient, like Aboriginal people in Australia and also in South America, they knew about the constitution of the DNAs somehow, there was like, and then how it's all connected and with the little dots. And we carry it. We all carry, carry all of it in our DNA. So we just need to, be aware, conscious. Yeah, just bring consciousness. We are consciousness, so just bring consciousness into every little part, I think, of life. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful, nourishing. I'll share a small conclusion for me is I really like the word remember. If you split it, remember, become a member again. That's what it means to me. So I think that's my conclusion is to remember through this conversation. Yeah, becoming part of the whole. Thank you so much. I will now officially close our session with the sound. I don't feel called to necessarily make the sound. So if someone feels called to make a sound to close our session, just make a sign and I will give you the floor to close. If not, no pressure. I can also close it. So no one wants to do. Oh, okay. There we go.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was really, really precious and beautiful. Thank you, Paul, for beautiful facilitation, and Naomi, Mara, and Marina for co-creating together with Paul this dialogue. Really beautiful to see. Paz and I were here in the background, and we were saying like, wow, this frequency is amazing. So thank you, guys. I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
post here on the chat a survey where you can give us a short feedback on how this experience was for you. You'll also be receiving an email from us in a moment with the contact of all the participants here, so you have that. So yeah, I think that's it. There's 4 more dialogues happening today, so if you feel like watching, just go to the website and click on the link to watch, and yeah, stay tuned. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.